I was reminded of this from reading another thread on a different subreddit. I'm a teacher who used to work retail and I still work a part-time retail job during the summer. Earlier this year, I was sat at an empty register when a girl, who I taught the academic year before, came in to buy lip gloss. At first she didn't recognize me, but I recognized her. I was ringing her items up, and when I asked her cash or card, it clicked to her and she asked me if I was her social studies teacher from last year. I told her yes, I'm still a teacher, but I have another job and you've found me at this one. She stayed to pay, but she bolted right after. A lot were also coming in during the back-to-school season. I just didn't have any stories from them. In fact, they avoided me. The girl must have told people. I'm not a confrontational person, but I am more than happy to stand up for myself. I've been reading a lot of stories on here of people copying abuse and just taking it, so I figured I'd share a story that has a happy ending for the store. Working at a store that has a large online presence, we deal with a lot of customers asking us where parcels are in transit. We aren't the courier, so we aren't the people to reach out to if a parcel gets delayed, but customers do it anyway. Customers are more than capable of talking to the couriers themselves, but we still help because it's good customer service. This one customer though, he is a huge pain. He watches tracking like a hawk and will call, email us the instant there's a delay, and he buys a lot of stuff. There's also a problem with every item he purchases, but that's another story. Last Saturday, he sent us 2 emails. We are closed weekends, so I didn't see them until Monday morning. The first email was a complaint about a non-issue regarding a previous purchase, so I politely told him it was a non-issue. His second email said his latest parcel is marked as delivered, but he didn't receive it, so he wants us to investigate. Last time this happened to him, his parcel was at the post office. I had no reason to believe it wasn't at the post office again, plus it was the middle of the Christmas rush and I had 2 no-shows for staff, so I politely encouraged him to reach out to the courier himself because I didn't have the time to do it for him. He did not like that. He replied to my email with being busy is not an excuse, you've helped me before, you can help me again. All I could think was being busy is not an excuse? What the fuck? I couldn't believe what I read. Before I had a chance to reply though, he called. This is a brief transcript. I don't appreciate being brushed off like that. You guys have helped in the past, there's no reason you can't do it again. Last time, your colleague managed to find my missing parcel. Actually, that was me, I remember. Don't interrupt me, it's very rude. As I was saying, refusing to help me is terrible customer service. Also, you never replied to my first email. Actually, ID. Don't fucking interrupt me, did no one teach you manners? Howda. I will interrupt you if you make up lies about me, I will not just roll over and let you speak to me this way. You are extremely rude, let me speak to your boss. Sure, then I hung up instantly. Then he called back. I knew it was him as we have caller ID, so without even giving him a chance to talk, I pick up the phone, immediately say he's busy, then instantly hung up again. After that, I replied to his email. I told him that being busy is an excuse, that he has no idea how stressful Christmas is for a retail store, especially when employees don't turn up, and that if he ever spoke to me or anyone like that again, we wouldn't hesitate to terminate the phone call and block his credit cards, which meant he wouldn't be able to shop with us again. A Christmas miracle happened after that, he apologized. Not only that, he admitted he was wrong about me not replying to his first email, he accepted that it was indeed a non-issue that he shouldn't complain about, then he contacted the courier himself and they resolved his issue for him, without us holding his hand. Turns out a neighbor had his parcel. I understand being in a confrontation with an angry customer can be scary, and standing up for yourself is hard because it's your job to be polite. The reality of these situations is it's usually a middle-aged person yelling at a young person, which is very intimidating, but I hope that people that read this get a little catharsis knowing that sometimes, these people realize their mistakes and have the power to apologize. This happened about a year ago. I was 18 and so was my girlfriend who worked at the same store as I did. Our store manager was a small middle-aged lady who overall wasn't a bad manager, but she had one big problem. She was terrible at dealing with shoplifters. I don't know what the laws are in other countries and states, but where this took place, workers were not allowed to touch shoplifters or else they could sue our company. According to store policy, for safety reasons, we were not allowed to block or stand in the way of shoplifters. Our store manager regularly yelled at, confronted, harassed, and blocked shoplifters. She had gotten in trouble for it before, but she was good at her job and we had no replacements. Now to the story. One morning, it was me, my girlfriend, and the store manager all working in the store. My girlfriend was working the front register. Managers are supposed to stay at the front, and I was in the back helping people if they needed something from our back room. At some point, I come out of the back room and find my manager arguing with some woman. They were carrying a large bag which appeared to be empty. This person was a regular shoplifter in the plaza my store was located. So my manager followed her all the way to the back of the store. The shoplifter was telling my manager to stop following her and my manager was saying, "I'm just here in case you need anything." My manager was constantly about 5-10 feet away from her just cleaning up shelves. This was nothing new, so I didn't think much of it. The shoplifter asked for some items from the back which I brought out to her because she hasn't done anything wrong yet and I didn't know she was a regular shoplifter. I was still being nice and cordial with her because that's just how I work. Afterwards, I convinced her to let me bring the items she asked for to the front for her. We do this to prevent shoplifting by placing the items behind the counter of the register and not bringing it back up until they pay for it. When I get to the front, I begin helping my girlfriend cut the line down and get on the other register. As my manager and the shoplifter approach the front, they are getting more and more aggressive with each other. The shoplifter had began grabbing items off of the shelves and stuffing them into her bag, saying, "Now I'll give you a reason to follow me." My manager is now berating her and slapping items out of her hands onto the floor. The shoplifter is now trying to leave out the front door and my manager is blocking the door 2 feet in front of the shoplifter. My manager tells me to call the cops and so I do. This whole time, I am trying to ignore what is happening and help other people at checkout and my girlfriend is doing the same. At the same time as I am trying to ring people up for their items, I am on the phone with the cops telling them the situation and the description of the shoplifter. At some point I look over and the shoplifter had pulled a gun out of her bag and was now pointing it at my manager's head. As I relayed this new more terrifying situation to the operator, my manager continued to stand her ground and mocked her gun, saying the gun wasn't real and that she was doing a poor job of threatening her. The operator was asking about descriptions of the gun. It was a small pistol with a side accessory on the top. The shoplifter then pointed the gun to the floor behind her and shot it, causing everyone to suddenly crouch down. I continued relaying this information to the operator. It was pretty loud, but not as loud as normal firearms and there was little to no flash. So when she brought the gun back to point at my manager's head, she still didn't believe it was real and was still berating her and blocking her from leaving the store. A few seconds later, the shoplifter pushed past my manager and began running down the sidewalk. My manager followed her outside and continued to yell at her as she ran away. I explained to the operator the direction she ran and they said they would be there soon. At this point I would like to mention that my manager owns many firearms and regularly takes them to firing ranges. My manager walked back inside complaining about how the cops were still not here yet. She then said, "People who do that are so funny, like don't you think I can tell it's not real?" To which I pointed at the bullet casing lying on the ground. She picked it up and said and set it on the counter and walked to the office to pull up security camera of all this being caught on tape. Not too long after, the cops arrived and said that they found someone hiding behind the building behind a dumpster. The cops gave my manager shit for not closing the store immediately as people were still walking in and out. The cops took our statements and information and I was taken in the police car around the back to verify that they got the right person. They also found her bag and gun in nearby bushes. For some reason I was calm throughout the whole thing and still was afterwards, but my girlfriend was freaking out and shaking, which is fair. I was glad I was there to help calm her down and hold her. My manager was asking when we could open back up the store and she was told minimum 2 hours. She wanted to open back up immediately. The cops explained to all of us to never block them or confront them, and to always assume it's real just in case. And just like that, we reopened 2 hours later and my girlfriend and I worked the rest of our shifts like nothing happened. Except for the entire front of the store being covered in and smelling like gunpowder dust. So, apparently, the way I handle clothes is rude. A lady and her daughter come in looking for a shirt with skiing. We luckily had one and I said I'll have to look for another one in their size. The manager found one but it was on a tall display rack. She's shorter than me, and I'm not exactly tall. So while my manager goes in the back for a ladder, she asks me to see if I can grab it. As I attempt to pull it off the hanger, I quickly realize there's no way I can get it. So I flicked it back and said, "Yeah, she'll," referring to my manager, "have to get the ladder." I go back to the register and the mom goes, "I didn't realize we were inconveniencing you. That was really rude." I turn, "Huh? The way you handled the sweatshirt, that was so rude of you." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything and just stared at her. Here's a few things to know about me. I have a serious RBF, resting BH face. I don't have a customer service voice. My tone and enunciation is the exact same as if I was talking to anyone. Call me rude because I don't smile? Fair. Call me rude because I sound rude and annoyed? Totally reasonable. But I'm rude because I flicked a sweatshirt I couldn't reach? I'm gonna assume they were stressed about holiday shopping, and this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I go back in today, and I won't be shocked if we get a survey about how I handle clothes. Work in a regional big box store that has had a great deal of trouble keeping cashiers. I'm not in leadership but I supervise the front end. Yesterday one of my newer cashiers mistakenly thought an older customer didn't get an instant discount and spent some time checking with the department to ensure it was a legit discount. I went over and showed the cashier where on the screen a discount showed up. It's really not clear and in a stupid spot, and doesn't show up on customer's screen. Customer then begins to scold the cashier saying that she shouldn't be telling things to customers if they aren't true. I looked right at her and said, "I'm sorry ma'am, but she is one of our newer cashiers and just didn't know." She continued, she wasn't yelling, just using that adult voice as if my cashier was a child. I stopped her and told her that we need to be patient with new people. I'm just tired of cashiers quitting cause they are still getting experience and customers are jerks. This goes back close to 20 years ago. I worked at a small hardware store in Massachusetts. Most customers were just typical New Englanders, fast-paced and uppity from a diet consisting mainly of Dunkin' Donuts. Some customers, usually 10 to 20% of them, were nightmares. Some of my co-workers were already cold, hardened misanthropes from dealing with the general public. Don't get me wrong, I was cynical but I still tried to be pleasant and helpful to people. One co-worker, let's call him Greg, was one bad interaction away from going postal. We usually worked weekends together and overall he was a hard worker, but he would vent non-stop about how much he hated the town, the people, the store, the boss, and anything else. He would get finished dealing with a customer, they'd no more than leave the store, and he'd loudly yell something like, "Yeah, leave, don't come back. Slip, fall and break your spine on the ice, you putrid BTCH." He was always coming up with colorful curses for everyone. One particularly crummy day we were getting inundated with customers looking for snow shovels. We showed them that they walked right by them, as they were on display outside and along the entire 30 wall they walked by to ask us the question. The vein on the side of Greg's forehead was about to explode. One customer started throwing a fit at him, might have been overpriced, and Greg had enough. He screamed out, "You're all animals. All of you." He lifted up a bag of dog food over his head, bit it and split it in half, launching dog kibbles all over. He threw both halves at the nearby end display, knocked over a few shelves, and ran screaming down the center aisle, burst through the doors, and across the parking lot. Our boss walked over all nonchalant, holding his clipboard, and said, "Yeah, he's not coming back." Except, he did come back that night and rearranged the letters on the big display out front near the road to say "Greg rules, town." We didn't know until the next day,